Like many women today, they enlist in the military. This is such a case for a 20-year-old Vanessa Gillian who enlisted in the military in order to help fight for our freedom. However, what she did not expect was to be sexually assaulted by a higher commanding officer. And when she reported that higher commanding officer, she ended up dying by the hands of her assaulter, um, with no justice being done until her family had to do something about it. With the case of Vanessa, that is just one of the prime examples of what happens to women in the military as they face sexual assault and sexism from their higher officers, and when they go to look for help, the military turns a blind eye. We will talk about what sexism is, how it affects women, what sexual assault is, how this affects women, and what has been done to be able to help these women. Sexism and sexual assault will not go away in the military if it is not addressed, and we also talk about how this happens and what causes it to happen. And also, women will never get the justice that they deserve if we never bring light to this topic. Being a woman myself and seeing all that women face, and also knowing that I'm able to help them, allows us to be able to help to relate to these women, and also to let them know that they are not alone and that they have someone here that will always support them with what they go through. Stripe states in an article from this year in April that the Defense Department made a fiscal 2019 report on sexual assault in the military, and there was a total number of 7,826 sexual assault reports as both victims and subjects, and that number was up by 3% from the last fiscal report, what was in 2018. My goal here today is to educate you on what women go through in the military and what has been done to help these women. I will go through the problems, the causes, and the solutions to the sexism and the sexual assault women go through in the military. Now let us have a look at what are the problems such as sexism and also sexual assault. With the first problem being that the systematic sexism and how sexist comments and all the sexist comments women face in the military. First, we would look into what is sexism. So tolerance in a 2020 updated page states that sexism is a prejudicial and attitudes and discrimination against women on the basis of sex. These can come from different types of examples, can be like beliefs, behaviors, uses of language, policy reflecting and conveying a passive way to make women seem inferior. The society pages in April 2018 states that their author, Bones, conducted an interview with 33 U.S. service women in which they face bureaucratic harassment, which is when a powerful individual manipulates administrative policies and procedures to undermine their colleagues' professional careers. The author states that these women said such as that they gave their own experience, being that they delayed their promotions, they threatened to withhold their benefits, and also to cancel their holiday leave. It was more noticeable in Black and Hispanic women when they wrote their attitude reports. They say them having attitude, which lowered their chances of them getting promoted. The second problem being that the amount of sexual assault that women encounter and what has been done to help them. So PD Health in 2020. So PD Health in a 2020 article stated that in 2018, 7,623 reports of sexual assault were involving both service members, which involved service members as victims, and 6,053 of those were service members. Stripe stated in a May 2020 article that women listed the sexual assault was a factor to why they leave so early in the military. And they stated that their discouragement with military on how sexual assault happened, plus how they handle the assault, led to them leaving early, since they know that if they do come forward, they won't get any help that they need. The author Dixon states that, for example, 2 females stated that the perpetrator was not punished, and another woman stated that the lack of support from other members was what caused her to leave the military early. The perpetrator was not punished. Instead, it was the women that were being punished. They were the ones being, they were trying to get falsified testaments. They were one being pressured to do certain things that they wanted. They had their whole entire case being out open to the public when they wanted it private. So now we have seen the problems of sexism and sexual assault, and now we will look at what causes these things to happen. So the first cause is that the culture in the military is what leads to sexual assaults. So MSW.US in a 2018 August article stated that the power imbalance between men and women in the military, plus the culture of the homophobia leads to hypermasculine men. And the problem with this is that they want to prove themselves by the use of sexual language and sexual behaviors, which unfortunately causes these women to end up being sexual assaulted when these men trying to prove how strong they are and trying to break out of those stereotypes. And sadly, this has turned into a culture of acceptance, since many women in the military do not report what happens to them, since they fear that nothing will be done to help them, which unfortunately in most cases, sadly, nothing really does happen to these women. They don't get any support, and they end up being manipulated into having a false testimony, and the men gets away scot-free without anything happening to them. The second cause is that the sexist attitude comes from men being in a male-dominated hierarchy, such as the military, and women being the inferior ones in the military. MSW.USC in a October 2018 article states that military culture was based on gender stereotype. The military places an emphasis on masculine ideas and encourages dominance, aggression, self-sufficiency, and risk-taking. These power imbalances make it hard for women to be able to move up the ranks and also be able to succeed, since many men hold them back, since they do not want to see women succeed, which leads to these sexist attitudes of them trying to not make women be the same level as they are, since it is a very male-dominated hierarchy in the military. The causes for this to happen is due to gender inequality and also the masculine ideas placed on men, and how this is being used to do how they use this to do dangerous things. And since now that we look at these causes, now we look at some of the solutions that have been made by the government and also by ourselves to be able to help these women. So the first solution from a political stand of view is from an article, Defense, which states that in their article in 2018 that the acting Defense Secretary Patrick M. Shannon has established a sexual assault accountability and investigation task force, which reviews and makes recommendations in the plan of action, recommendations to women to be able to take their cases out of the military and go into independent firms. It is in their plan of action, they plan to change reforms in the military for more justice process and have efforts to prevent sexual assaults and provide care to victims. CNN states in 2020 that the U.S. House lawmakers introduced a bill called the I Am Vanessa Gillian Act, which makes sexual harassment a crime in the Uniform Code in the military. And this would also move cases of sexual harassment from the military to independent firms. When it comes to my personal stand of view on how we can figure the solution is be able to stand up for ourselves and make sure that these women feel that they're powerful enough to be able to stand up for their assaulters and get the justice that they deserve. It is also time for us to be able to stick together and tell these ladies that it's okay and that we will always be there for them. And also it's also for men to acknowledge the sexism and also how it affects multiple women. And there's a website called Teaching Tolerance, which shows people on what sexism is. And in conclusion, I explain what sexism is when sexual assault and that what women go through in the military and how it affects them after they leave. We talked about what sexism and sexual assault are and what causes this to happen and what laws have been passed to help women. Vanessa Gillian wanted to protect her own country in the military, but in the end, her sexual assault from her commanders went unnoticed, and nobody has been held accountable for this. Thank you.